Hello to you all. Welcome to Afro Perspectives, the space where truth confronts power and those entrusted with our future are held to account. I trust I find you all in good health and strong spirit as we embark on a journey through the stories that define and shape our everyday lives. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, former president of Zambia, a trusted ally of Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF and a towering figure in the brotherhood of Southern Africa's former liberation movements, has passed on. He was 68 years old. His passing marks the end of an era. A statesman whose presence echoed across borders, whose alliances were forged in the crucible of struggle, and whose voice carried the weight of a continent's hard-won freedom, has now fallen silent. News of his passing was confirmed by Given Lubinda, the acting president of the Patriotic Front, the Zambia's main opposition party, in a solemn announcement shared on the party's official Facebook page. With measured words and heavy hearts, the confirmation drew a veil of finality over a life that once commanded the helm of a nation and a legacy that now belongs to history. Edgar Chagwa Lungu drew his final breath on the 5th of June 2025 at the age of 68, like I said above. He passed away at the Mediclinic Med Forum in Pretoria, South Africa, following cardiac complications that arose after surgery. Despite the best of efforts of medical professionals, the battle could not be won. A life of service, sacrifice, and stature came to a solemn end, far from home, but never from the hearts of those he led. The news of Edgar Lungu's passing was also confirmed by his daughter, Tarsila Lungu Mansa, in a heartfelt message shared across both Facebook and the social media platform X. With the quiet strength of a grieving daughter, she gave a voice to a nation's sorrow, marking the moment when private loss became public mourning, and the weight of farewell settled across Zambia and the region of Southern Africa. I will let her speak for herself in her own words, unfiltered and raw. These are her exact words. My father has been under medical supervision in recent weeks. That's Tarsila Lungu Manza announcing in a video shared on social media. His condition was managed with dignity and privacy with support from all well-wishers. That's Tarsila, like I've said on there. So for years, Edgar Lungu has been quietly waging a personal battle against a debilitating condition known as Akulaia, a rare illness that gradually narrows the esophagus, making even the simple act of swallowing food or drinking water a painful experience. It brought with it relentless chest pains and silent suffering, which Edgar Lungu endured with the same stoicism and resilience that marked his years in public service. Consider this. In 2015, a stark and sobering moment gripped the nation of Zambia. Edgar Lungu collapsed mid-speech in the heart of Lusaka as he addressed the crowd on International Women's Day. It was a moment that laid bare his vulnerability even as he bore the burdens of leadership, a fleeting crack in an otherwise unyielding facade. Then in August of 2024, the nation of Zambia watched in stunned silence as Edgar Lungu collapsed again, this time during a televised National Defense Forces Day ceremony. This time it was a hypoglycemic attack, a cruel complication of his long struggle with Akulaia. Before the eyes of the whole nation, the former president was brought to his knees, not by politics or power, but by a relentless illness that shadowed him to the very end. So who was Edgar Chagwa Lungu? Edgar Lungu was a son of the Copper Belt. He was born on the 11th of November 1956 at Ndola Central Hospital. Long the presidential motorcades and political headlines, he was simply a boy from Ndola, shaped by humble beginnings, destined for a path that would one day place him at the helm of a nation. His story began in the heart of Zambia's industrial north, but its echoes would travel far beyond the borders of Zambia. After earning his Bachelor of Laws degree in 1981 from the prestigious University of Zambia, Edgar Lungu embarked on his professional journey at the law firm of Andrea Masie and Company, a respected law firm in Lusaka. It was here, in the corridors of justice and the halls of law, that he began to forge the foundation of a career that would eventually shape the destiny of Zambia as a nation. He subsequently undertook military officer training at the military training establishment of Zambia, known in short as MILTES, that is MILTES in Kabwe. It was under the Zambia National Service that he performed his military service. It was forged in discipline and duty, and the calling of law eventually persuaded him to return to the practice of law. But his journey was far from over. The call to save his nation beckoned him once again, and he answered by stepping into the realm of politics, where his destiny would unfold on the grand stage of leadership. In 2015, Edgar Lungu ascended to the presidency, stepping into the immense responsibility of completing the term of the late Michael Sata, who had passed away in office. It was a moment that demanded steady hands and unwavering resolve, a moment when leadership was not just a title, but a solemn duty to guide a nation through uncertainty and transition. Then in 2016, Edgar Lungu secured a full presidential term in his own right. He beat his rival, the current president Hakainde Hichilema, in the elections of that year. Yet the tides of politics were ever shifting. By 2021, the balance had changed, and it was Hakainde Hichilema who emerged victorious this time. It was a testament to the relentless ebb and flow of democracy, marking the closing chapter of Lungu's presidency and the dawn of a new era. However, beyond these domestic achievements, Edgar Lungu's alliance with the authoritarian regime of Emmerson Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe and the powerful yet deeply corrupt ZANU-PF elite stood as a stark and defining chapter of his legacy. This alliance, this friendship, controversial friendship, and unyielding, cast a long shadow over his years in leadership, forever entwining his name with a regime marked by repression and decay. That is the regime of Emmerson Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe. Throughout his leadership, Edgar Lungu cultivated enduring and unwavering bonds with the bloc of former liberation movements in Southern Africa, including the ANC in South Africa, the Frelimo in Mozambique, and Namibia's ruling SWAPO, and more controversially, Emmerson Mnangagwa's ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. His passing away is a loss to the opposition movement in Zambia and to the whole of Southern Africa. It will be felt keenly in Zimbabwe. Edgar Lungu was a key regional ally to ZANU-PF and Emmerson Mnangagwa. Despite the Southern Africa Development Community's condemnation and widespread doubt over Emmerson Mnangagwa's so-called re-election in 2023, Edgar Lungu stood apart, often voicing deep admiration for Zimbabwe's what he called Zimbabwe's revolutionary resilience. On the domestic front, Edgar Lungu's passing strikes a heavy blow to his party, the Patriotic Front, a movement now left without its most prominent figurehead. His death does more than silence a voice. It extinguishes the faint but persistent flame of political comeback he had long harbored. That chapter is closed. The return that once seemed possible will now remain a story unfinished. Edgar Lungu had set his sights on challenging President Hakainde Hichilema in the upcoming election next year, that is in 2026. He was determined to reclaim the mantle of leadership, the presidency. But that ambition was abruptly halted when Zambia's constitutional court ruled against his bid to contest the election in 2026. In a decisive judgment, the court declared that his time in office from 2015 to 2016 counted as a full presidential term, and that brought his total time in office to 2 terms, the constitutional limit. With that ruling, the door to a political return was firmly shut, and the final act of his public life began to unfold. Despite the court slamming the door on his political comeback, Edgar Lungu remained defiant. He claimed that for over a year his movements were closely monitored by the police, his every step shadowed, his freedom quietly constrained. In his own words, he had been effectively placed under house arrest, a calculated effort, he believed, to silence his presence and choke off any chance of his return to the political arena. So what is Edgar Lungu's legacy? Politics aside, Edgar Lungu leaves behind an undeniably layered legacy for Zambia. Beneath the controversies and rivalries, he championed a vision to steer the nation of Zambia beyond its heavy reliance on copper. He pushed for economic diversification, driving ambitious infrastructure projects and placing human security at the heart of his development agenda. It was a legacy shaped by ambition, marked by effort, and ultimately left for history to judge. He also etched his name into history by appointing Zambia's first female vice president, Inonge Wina, a bold statement of progress in a traditionally male-dominated political landscape. Beyond that, Edgar Lungu championed symbolic yet profound initiatives. He commuted the death sentence as a gesture of mercy and instituted a national day of prayer to anchor the nation in faith and reflection. In these moments, he sought to lead not only with power but with conscience. However, unlike his earlier in power, during the close of his tenure, Edgar Lungu appeared to drift steadily toward the authoritarian shadows cast by his southern neighbor Zimbabwe. His leadership began to mirror the tightening grip and hardline tendencies of the ZANU-PF elite in Harare, raising alarms that the democratic promises of his early days was giving way to a more repressive and intolerant order. His PF government often reached for emergency powers in times of unrest, most notably during the riots ignited by rumors of ritual killings that spiraled into waves of xenophobic violence. But what some saw as efforts to maintain order, others condemned as a steady erosion of democracy. Edgar Lungu was accused of using the machinery of state to suppress opposition voices, stifle freedoms of expression, curtail public assembly, and muzzle the independent press. To them, that is, those who opposed him, it was not the hand of stability, it was the tightening fist of repression and control. Edgar Lungu passed laws like the Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act, which were rushed through Parliament at alarming speed, sparking fears that the digital space, that is on places like social media, once a frontier of free expression, was now being brought to the jackboot of oppression. Media outlets critical of the government were shuttered, that is, they were closed down, their voices abruptly silenced. Activists faced a wave of intimidation, arrest, and relentless surveillance. Opposition parties and human rights groups often sounded the alarm and condemned the weaponization of defamation laws to muzzle dissent and criticism, but the steady erosion of, above all, the steady erosion of the independence of institutions like the police and the judiciary. To many, it marked a chilling descent, a falling from grace, a government drifting further from democracy and deeper into the grip of authoritarianism, just like his southern neighbor and his source of admiration, Emerson Mnangagwa, down there in Zimbabwe. Lungu stood firm in the face of criticism, unapologetic in his defense of heavy-handed security tactics. He insisted that invoking a state of emergency, say like that in 2017, was not a retreat from democracy, but a measure necessary to bring what he called sanity in turbulent times. To him, order was paramount, even if it meant tightening the reins of power. To his critics, it was a dangerous justification for silencing the opposition and those who opposed his rule. Well, I'm sure you will agree with me by now that Edgar Lungu, Chagwa Lungu, leaves behind a legacy both complex and contested, a leader shaped by moments of bold vision and burdened by the weight of controversy. His imprint on Zambia will not be easily forgotten. Edgar Changa Lungu is survived by his wife of 39 years, Esther Lungu, a steadfast companion throughout his journey, and he is also survived by their 6 children, including Tasila Lungu, the Member of Parliament for the Chagwa constituency. In them, that is in his children and his wife, his story continues, etched in memory, carried forward by those who knew him, not just as a president, but as a husband, a father, and a man. Well, thank you for tuning in, and if you believe I've overlooked a crucial detail in this eulogy and on Edgar Lungu, go ahead, make your case in the comments below. And please let the debate just focus on facts, no personal attacks, please. And if this analysis struck a chord, if it steered a thought or sharpened your view, don't forget to show some love. Just give me just a simple like and hit the subscribe button. And to stay with us on this journey where we flesh out ideas for a better future for all, for Southern Africa. Until next time, thank you, siyabonga, tatenda, goodbye.